On this episode of Edge of the Web.
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, client satisfaction is partially a product of their expectations. So what can you do for them? But I think that the most successful relationships between PPC professionals and end clients, and I think this is true in-house as well, is really understanding more than just what we're able to see in the back end of the various platforms that we work on. So having those conversations where information is being shared in both directions, where I might come to the meeting and I might say, oh, here's what we're seeing. This is the performance that we've seen. This seems to be trending in this direction. This is something we're keeping our eye on. But I'm almost more interested in hearing from the client, what's the quality of the leads that we've brought in? What's the quality of the traffic? Because they need to be feeling good about what we're bringing.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
This is Edge of the Web Radio episode 365. Yes, 365 episodes we've been doing this. And you know what? It's been 9 years in the making. So how in the world, I can't match up. I mean, if we're doing a show a day, that's one thing, right? That'd be great. But 9 years to make 365 episodes, Jacob.
That's awesome. I'm there.
Really?
That's good.
So another. So we're going to do a show a day from here on out.
Yeah.
Just to get another 365.
Yeah. I'll be faster on this board. It's the only way. Daily.
Daily. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week we bring you amazing guests to chat with regarding digital marketing trends, tactics, and techniques. We try to debunk and demystify some concepts out there because there's a lot of things happening on a daily basis, not unlike this show, right? Or at least that's what Jacob's going to promise.
Exactly.
We unpack key marketing topics with our digital marketing audience, whether you're part of an agency or a freelancer or a part of a firm that is part of an internal marketing department. This show is for you. Check out all the recent episodes over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. And let us know how we're doing over there as well. We certainly have an ongoing poll. Let us know what you'd like to hear more about. It's trending towards advanced SEO. I'll be honest with you, and there's a heck of a lot of audience participants that are in the SEO space. We talk about SEO a heck of a lot. We're known as an SEO podcast. You can even Google search us. The youngsters don't say Google search; they just say Google, right?
Yeah, you just Google it.
You just Google it.
Yeah.
Why would I put search at the end of Google?
Did I just become a youngster? 'Cause that's awesome.
Darn whippersnapper. Just Google us, SEO Podcast. You're going to find us right at the top of the list. You need to know the ropes of the show. Each and every week, we actually record our show, both audio and video. So if you're watching us, thanks for joining us. We're posting into YouTube on multiple pieces of video in our studio, Edge Media Studios from Indianapolis, Indiana. And we'll also take our audio from our recordings, take it straight to Podcastville, so to speak, right? So we'll take it to iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartMedia, Player FM, Spotify, TuneIn. How many more do we have? Bunches.
That's all of them.
No, it's not. That's not. No, we got like 20.
I got you on Plex.
But you put us there.
Well, but Plex just makes you add a feed from anywhere. So you just pick any of those feeds that you've mentioned,
right,
and add it.
Right. Stitcher. We're on Stitcher.
Yep.
See? Got me talking enough to actually remember another one. Stitcher's pretty good. Actually, we're having some really good play there. Pun intended. Check over Edge of the Web Radio to see the podcast, the video casts, as well as our articles that we put out each and every week, as well as a summary of the news. We also push an email newsletter out each and every week regarding the show, who we talked to, what we talked about, and the news articles. So if you want to consume that particular lane and you don't have time to listen or watch, we got you covered on the email side. So check us out over at edgeofthewebradio.com. You can join the newsletter right there, or text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, and you can actually start your sign up right there free of charge. We won't use your email for anything except sending over some digital nuggets of gold. The show is actually brought to you by the title sponsor, Site Strategics, our parent company. We're the pioneers in agile digital marketing. Our core specialties are technical SEO and content SEO, social media, paid in the paid space of SEM and SMM, which would be social media marketing, as well as conversion rate optimization. A lot of the times, it's not about the traffic; it's about what you do with the traffic, and you need to optimize and be able to make sure you're not hiding the cheese for the traffic that you're sending to your own website. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, just give us a shout over at 877 SEO for web. I'll translate that for you because that's always a pain in the ass. 877-736-4932. We'll give you a free hour consultation, talk to you about what we could possibly do for your firm, what we can see, and possible direct digital action items coming out of that call free of charge. Just give us a shout at that number, and we'll be happy to talk to you. All right. In the booth, we've got Jacob Mann, who is the studio creative director.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Sir. How's the reassemble of the studio going?
It's everything. I thought everything was good and found out today that none of these microphones are hitting the speakers, but they're hitting the headphones and the recording, so I guess we don't care.
So, yeah, we got a studio with a bunch of speakers in here for the lobby speakers and internal speakers, but, hey, you look good with the cans on.
Yeah. Maybe it's the new thing. It messed up the hair a little bit, but it wasn't looking that good today anyway, so that's okay.
Thank you for sacrificing for the show.
You're welcome.
All right, we want to let you know who's going to be on the show here coming up. We are going to have the John Mueller of Google Web Trends and Analytics on here on the 31st of October. Your hair is fine. Trust me. Jerome Courthout of Sales Flair on the 2nd. Shay Rowbottom's coming around on the 8th of September. And Shaima Hyder of Zen Media is coming on the 28th of September. Got a couple spots still floating around here in mid-September, but if you are interested in being part of the show, or you know somebody that would be really good for our listeners, drop us a line at info@edgeofthewebradio.com, and we'll be happy to talk to you about interviewing them or you. So with that, make sure you set reminders to get to YouTube whenever you get notified of our premiere videos that we roll out from the show. We break them up into the news section as well as the interview section, interlink them both, but also point them back over to the articles and the transcripts of the show as well. There we go. Make sure you check out all that information over at edgeofthewebradio.com. But now, and she's been waiting in the wings this entire time, and it's like 7 minutes I've been talking without even introducing her. What kind of host am I? She hung up, didn't she?
She's still there. I can see her. You're good.
Let's meet this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Julie Friedman Beccini, president at Neptune Moon LLC.
All right, so we have Julie Friedman Beccini, president of Neptune Moon Consultancy. She's been in the PPC game since the days of LookSmart and Overture. Yes, indeed. She actually has truly seen it all on the PPC side of things. She and her blog have been on many top influencer lists over the past few years, including the PPC Hero Top 25 Most Influential PPC Experts. She's also presented PPC topics locally at industry events such as HeroConf and SMX East. So, Julie, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
That's it? That's all you're going to say?
I don't know. I've been waiting.
You have been waiting.
Let's get to it.
I thought I was holding you back, and you just would have exploded on the set. No,
I'm easing in. I'm ready. Let's get to it.
All right. Well, Julie gave you kind of the official bio. Give us your history in your words. Where you been? And how you got here?
Well, it's been a long journey. I have been working in the digital space for 21 years independently. So I am, in some ways, I feel like that makes me a bit of a digital dinosaur, but I mean that in a way that I have experienced a lot. Not that, I'm ancient or a fossil.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that analogy. That kind of goes sideways on you real quick.
It does. But, from a historical perspective, in internet years, 20 odd years is an amazingly long time.
That's longer than dog years, right?
It is.
Wow.
And I started I started in web development and quickly moved into doing SEO. I mean, there was no paid search at that point. So, I moved into SEO, and then I started doing paid when that came on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I really fell in love with paid, the amount of data that you have, the things that you can do, the quick results that you can get. So I have kept my practice moving heavily in the direction of paid search. So I still do a few things outside of paid, but my primary focus is paid search.
Mm-hmm.
The conversion rate optimization that you were talking about is also very important.
Absolutely.
You can bring all the traffic in the world, but if they're going someplace terrible, nothing good is going to happen.
It's wasted money.
It is
and
wasted money.
A lot of
and I hate that.
frustrated participants, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you can feel like, nothing's worse than having, a meeting with a new client and you feel like, wow, we are killing it for these guys.
Right.
Like they are going to be so happy when we have this meeting and we go over these stats, and then they're less enthused than you're expecting because, what they're seeing on their end is not, nearly as exciting as what you're seeing on your end. So yeah, that piece is incredibly important.
I want to explore just that. For a moment before getting into the kind of the meat of it, is that what's the responsibility of the advertiser to understand the lead value that they're bringing to a client? The not just the ROI, but the context of the lead, and understanding how oriented that consumer is from an intent standpoint for transaction.
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, client satisfaction is partially a product of their expectations. So
Mm-hmm.
what can you do for them? But I think that the most successful relationships between PPC professionals and end clients, and I think this is true in-house as well,
Mm-hmm.
is really understanding more than just what we're able to see in the back end of the various platforms that we work on. So having those conversations where information is being shared in both directions,
Mm-hmm.
where I might come to the meeting and I might say, oh, here's what we're seeing. This is the performance that we've seen. This seems to be trending in this direction. This is something we're keeping our eye on. But I'm almost more interested in hearing from the client, what's the quality of the leads that we've brought in? What's the quality of the traffic? Because they need to be feeling good about what we're bringing.
Absolutely.
So, again, it's easy to feel sometimes on our side that we're doing this like fantastically amazing job when we're just looking at our numbers. But it's equally important when you have that conversation, because then you want to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think is most interesting about working in paid search is we have so much data that loops back to us, both from the platform and that we can get from clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can refine what it is that we're doing. So if we find that the quality of leads is maybe not quite as good as what they would want, or it's a little bit off kilter, they have a bigger percentage of people who are interested in something that's more ancillary, then we can take that data back and say, okay, maybe we need to take a look at how we're wording our ads,
Right.
or what we're targeting, or what we're showing on the landing page, so that we're trying to sort of drop some of those folks out who maybe are not quite as good of a lead. And
Yep.
we want to be just like refining it down to the leads that they're going to be most excited about.
No, that's not only well stated, it also is a clarion call for marketers to understand the other side of the fence. You can throw as much at a particular website or landing pages or even conventional marketing, and if you don't pay attention to the leads that you're getting, and have a manner to kind of a shared vernacular with the client of how to score them, how to understand the value, then you're never going to get the full picture. It's just a sidebar. We had experience. I had experience years ago when I was doing PPC for a personal injury attorney, and we were getting 7.5% conversion on the traffic that we're sending, and we had it all articulated out to different types of personal injury ad groups. But when we talked to the client, just to your point, none of them were suitable for the attorney, because they were all McDonald's hot water spill complaints that they just wanted to capitalize on something that they just got recently that they they weren't a real good match at all for the client. And they had a vetting process of like 21 different questions, and none of them passed muster of whether or not this could be a suitable client. So I never saw that 21 question roster there. Had I seen that, boy, that would have changed the entire course of the PPC actions, you know?
Absolutely.
Not airing a little bit of dirty laundry there, but man, we kind of screwed it up.
But you didn't know.
No.
And I think that it's part of what we really want to try to do is we want to develop that partnership with a client. We want to be able to bring to bear all of our particular expertise when it comes to paid search, when it comes to, SEO, if that's, your side of the fence. You want to bring all of your expertise to bear, but you want that partnered with all of the information and all of the expertise that the client has. So you're really taking both of those things and you're trying to use it to your best advantage to be able to position things maybe a little bit differently or a little stronger than, another competitor who maybe is not really working with somebody who's interested in having that level of knowledge and that type of partnership working on these things.
So furthering that particular line of questioning, do you have a process of onboarding that allows you to really do a full intake of some of these questions aren't really discovered the first couple of meetings. You actually have to do some deep diving with a client to be able to really find out who's their best type of customer, right?
Yeah. And I think, interestingly, sometimes clients don't really know. I worked with so there's that whole piece. I mean, we're talking about it, like assuming that clients have a really good handle on, who their best clients are. It's not always true.
Nope, absolutely not.
Sometimes they really do. And that's great. Sometimes they have a thought about who their client is. And when you really start to dig into the numbers and you start to analyze things, you can sort of come back to them. I worked with a commerce client that was convinced that their client base was millennial women. I was not convinced that was true. Just based on the price point of their product and a few other things. So in looking at their data, it was pretty clear to me that the millennial women would purchase this product when it was discounted. And that was pretty much the bulk of their purchases. But you had the women in the next age group up, the 45 to 54-year-old women who actually were their consistent non-sale purchasers. So I feel like sometimes, we have access to data and clients can have really a very preconceived notion of sort of like what their target market is, who's buying their stuff, at what volume, they can get a little hung up in sort of their own idea of what it should be like, oh, well, we want to be hip. We want, like the millennials to like us. Well, that's great if the millennials like you and they actually buy your stuff. But if it's, older people who are buying your stuff, then I think, you might want to adjust. You might want to have two different campaigns, for example. If you're targeting on something like Facebook, you may want to have slightly different campaigns because millennials are going to, be more interested in certain aspects of the product. Whereas, this product was for women. So women age 45 to 54, what they're looking for in a particular product is going to be perhaps a little bit different. So I think, digging in and finding information and then having those types of conversations with the client of saying, hey, I know you said this, but here's what we found when we were actually looking at your data. And this is what we'd like to do to test that out and see what we can achieve. Like, can we gain more traction with millennials if we're concentrating on them in a particular way? Versus what can we do with, the older audience who really is actually your core customer base? Yeah,
you can't advertise with an echo chamber where it's your client giving you all the data and it's not being researched. It's not being, PPC can actually be a bit of a focus group, right?
For sure.
And be able to understand audience and behavior in a whole different light. And clients aren't wired to have that type of large or wider lens of experimentation. And to your point, a lot of times clients are going to orient them to their own self-image to something they're trying to achieve as opposed to what the potential reality is.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that you have choices when the data doesn't match up to sort of what those expectations are. So, some clients will want to double down on the fact that like, no, this is who buys our stuff. And other clients are more flexible and are more interested in actually saying, oh, that's interesting. Like, that isn't really what we thought. We thought that, this is who our target market is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can examine, are there reasons why the target market that you think should be yours isn't really turning out to be who's buying your stuff?
Right.
And are there things that you can do to maybe make that happen? Or are you just, wrong? And that's what I love about paid. You get so much almost instantaneous feedback, or feedback within a pretty short period of time, as far as, is something moving the needle one way or the other? And you can swap it out, and it changes in, what somebody is seeing changes in real time. So it's an exciting space to work in from that standpoint, for sure.
Absolutely. But you also have to prepare on what you're going to test before you test it. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're just not even being led by numbers. You're just throwing caution to the wind there. So we reached out to you because you have a particular insight, not only to PPC, but also just because you've seen so many different things happen in paid advertising, right? And with all compliment, I mean, you've seen a number of different crises happen. And let's get into this first topic. Huge changes in the paid ad management realm have happened over the years. And if you look back in history, just for a moment, you're going to be able to see that we've been currently caught up in so many perceived changes in the marketplace. We have an incredible crisis on our hands right now. But are these changes, and is the advertising environment as volatile as it was through the hurdles that we've been through? So, for example, the dot-com era. 2000s, when there was so much buildup of the dot-com concept, and the bubble burst, and so many companies just disappeared overnight. And we saw a number of them, right? But what happened during the online advertising during that point in time?
That was really that happened in the beginning. I mean, that was in the early 2000s. So paid search really was just sort of coalescing at that point.
Right.
There were minor offerings. It was not sophisticated at all at that point. You could see what your competitors were bidding.
Yeah.
Back in those days, that was great. So it was like The Price is Right. You just bid a penny more and you were good to go. So that particular time, that was a really interesting time, because all of the web stuff, everything digital, was really just becoming ubiquitous, so that it was, people were accessing the internet, and they were becoming oriented to finding things on the web. Google was up and coming. Yahoo was very big at that time. AOL was very big at that time.
That's right.
So people were just starting to kind of get into the rhythm of using the internet. So I would say, from a disruption standpoint, it was highly disruptive to the general economy. So marketing is often, one of the first places where things get frozen, or budgets get cut, or all of that. So all of that definitely happened during that time. There was definitely a contraction in marketing for a period of time after that. It was not really exclusively digital, because digital was still sort of, finding its footing, I think. At that particular time.
Right.
The 2008 crisis definitely had, a huge impact on digital, because it was much more mature, at that point than it was in like 2001, 2002.
No, we actually lost right at the 2008 crisis. We lost a couple sizable PPC clients. They just couldn't do it. They could not do it. They couldn't even function. And they closed their doors up within months. The entire economy just came to a screaming halt. We all understand that. However, there was traditional advertising that was dropping off, but online advertising was actually taking a hold. And they actually forecasted a 20% annual growth into 2008, and that particular growth spike, has that been matched over the course of years? Have we seen a 20% jump?
Yeah, I mean, I think the growth of digital has been exponential when you think about where it started and how prevalent it was. It was something that was not done by most advertisers. I mean, it just, even it's amazing to think how many years, not that many years ago, not everybody even had a website, right? Like
That's right.
you think of that and you're like, impossible.
Yep.
There's no way that people didn't have. Well, they didn't. And the technology has advanced in so many ways, the advance of WordPress, even as a really robust and viable system to be able to build highly functional, easy to edit, beautiful websites. I mean, that was a huge revolution in and of itself. Even 15 years ago, you would have had to hand code, that would have been a custom solution. Like if you wanted a site that did everything that a WordPress site does now, that would have been like a $30,000+ custom solution website, which is amazing to think about now.
Absolutely. No. Just talking about that realm, I remember so many different CMSs that rolled out that were custom, and if you're getting behind them, you're getting behind that particular developer. And guess what? They weren't actually protecting anything from any type of maliciousness. So you got a lot of hacker opportunities that jump into those spaces. And thank God we have some stabilization and some security in place now. We just didn't have it back then. So can you think of any experiences during the 2008 realm that were jaw-dropping, either positive or negative, from a crisis standpoint of the advertisers that you worked with?
I remember it very vividly. I was actually, I was sitting in the vestibule for a big client that I was about to sign. Like I literally had the contract in hand. This was our last meeting that we were going to have, and I was going to sign this ginormous contract to do all this work for this particular company. And as I'm sitting there in the waiting room was when like just the stock market just crashed literally that morning as I'm sitting there waiting to meet with the CEO of the company. He canceled the meeting. We did not end up signing that contract. That never came to fruition. That was sort of like, wow, okay, this is going to be a big deal. And it was not unlike if you weren't around in 2008, the kind of seismic feeling to everything that we had with the pandemic, starting in March, it was very similar, right. I think in magnitude and in scope as far as what was happening. There's a lot of panic, a lot of immediate contraction, a lot of like, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Right.
That all feels very similar. But I will say, having been through 2008, and you can see this here in the current sort of crisis situation, crises don't impact every industry equally.
No, absolutely.
And it feels a little weird to think like, oh, wow, like certain industries really actually can benefit and really have like incredibly boom times when everyone else is not. I think that was true in 2008. And I think that's certainly true now, right? You see companies who, produce particular types of products or services are hugely in demand. They can't even keep up.
Oh, to be a stock owner of Zoom.
Exactly.
Yes,
or PPE or a PPE producing company or, that type of thing. So I think things have a way of kind of righting themselves. And I think that part of what helps you to have longevity, no matter which side of things you're on, is a willingness to be flexible. And if you are going to be very rigid and very married to like, this is what we do and this is how we do it and this is who we do it for, you might not survive a time like this. I think the biggest skills that you can have that you can bring to bear in a situation like this is to really, really listen and try to suss out like, what is it that's keeping a client up at night? I mean, I think that that's good advice in general. You want to try to be addressing what is keeping people up at night. That's what you want to be able to help with. That's what you want to be able to address. That's what you want to be able to make them feel comfortable with. But when you get into a time when things are really, really intense and people are scared and they're worried about the economy in general, which they very much are now,
right,
then I think it becomes even more important. And you have to think about being able to sort of be flexible in what you're doing and what you're offering. Maybe your business was more focused on, doing a lot of search advertising, but people aren't really buying, what the end client is selling so much. So, maybe now is the time to pivot and to do some more like brand awareness type of advertising. And maybe you want to expand into social if you're not doing a ton on social, because you're just not going to drive the sales, that bottom of the funnel, like search action kind of sale. Like that's just not going to happen right now for certain industries. So what do you do instead?
So you change and you if you don't have transactional nature of your customers, do you just freeze up? Do you just seize your advertising dollars? No, you alternatively can invest in a longer play of SEO investment or graphic design investment that actually helps connect to your audience when they're ready, or give them different type of experiences with the products and the offerings that you provide, but also the experience of the brand itself. We saw a lot of this when it first started to come down and the shutdown happened, that capitalizing on the actual COVID shutdown, and there was a brand sensitivity that so many brands screwed up on just by plowing right in there and trying to grab a hold of anything it could. Consumers are very sensitive to this right now, and you can't screw up your own brand by trying to adjust too quickly to capitalize on ads that are going to be seen as a little bit advantage taking, right?
Yeah, I think you want to be really careful with that. People get they don't want to feel like you are trying to sell to them or you're trying to take advantage of, a difficult and trying situation. So I think you have to be extra careful when things are fraught. And I would say things are definitely fraught. Everything is so extra right now for everybody in every aspect of their life. You want to be extra careful then, and you want to think hard about how you're presenting things, and you want to think about, what is the message? What are we doing? Sometimes the best thing you can do is just take a breath, and maybe you want to just like sit it out for a few weeks while the worst, or the storm is breaking. You don't necessarily have to be in that fray. Sometimes you can just take a minute and be quiet. And let people kind of, get through the initial reaction. And then you can use that time to be paying attention,
right?
And, thinking as a human being, and then figure out like, okay, what do we do now? Like, we don't want to do nothing. We don't want to just, let our market share dry up, but like, what's appropriate? Like, what feels okay? And that's something in a situation like this, you're going to have to reevaluate probably on a weekly basis. Every couple of weeks, you're going to have to, kind of take a look at what you're doing and figure out, does this still feel okay?
Right.
Is this still, are we still doing things that are meeting the moment in a positive way? Or have we crossed into like, ooh, like nobody wants to be in that ooh space.
Yeah. And then also, along with that, you also need to be paying even closer attention to what your competitors are doing as well. Not only to see what moves they're making in a particular strategic manner, but also, are they responding? Are they aligned and sensitive to what's happening right now? Is this a place where you can actually exploit the lack of sensitivity of one of your competitors, and in a place where it doesn't provide that on your side of the fence? I mean, you don't want to put a thumb in the eye of competitors, but at the same time, if there's some dissonance or if they're not listening to what their prospects are actually demonstrating from a behavior, it's certainly ample opportunity for you, right?
Yeah. And I think that can also happen behind the scenes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be out in the forefront. So for example, if one of your competitors like really stepped in it, and people are like, oh my God, I don't want to do business with this company anymore because of the way that they handled something. One way that you might be able to I hate to say capitalize because that feels icky, but I mean, it's our job. It's our job. So I will say capitalize. One way that you can capitalize on that would be if you hadn't been running a competitor campaign, let's say in your paid social or your paid search. That might be a good time to do it because people might be searching for alternatives to company X, who just really stepped in it. Or, you could run search campaigns for boycott company X. And then you can have your ads come up, and you want to be careful in what you put in your ads. But if you are truly an alternative to, the company that really stepped in it, then you can, pick up a little bit of market share. You have to tread carefully. And I think now more than ever, when things are fraught, you want to remember that there are people at the end of any kind of transaction or any kind of ad that you're showing. And so it's even more important. It's always important to be in touch with your own humanity and your own, I kind of joke that I am of two minds when it comes to digital advertising. There's like me as a person, and some of the stuff that we're able to do and I help clients do on a regular basis, I don't love, as an individual. But it's my job to take advantage of technology that's available and do it in a responsible way. So I think if you try to keep those things in mind and you keep that balance and you want to be extra sensitive about not stepping over a line or not, doing things that could put you in the, icky zone when it comes to how clients are, how the general public or your potential customers are feeling about you.
It's official. It's called the icky zone. We're gonna jump in there. It's gonna be ickyzone.com. We got it. I'm sure that's already. It's already
it probably is. I shudder to think what might actually be there. I'm not Googling that. I will not Google that.
Absolutely will not type that in on a work computer.
Please don't.
No.
We got plenty of antivirus to protect us. No, you're absolutely right. Is you got to know your space, you got to know your client, and you have to be listening, and listening to the competitors and seeing what's happening there. So we wanted to go to you for some sage advice to consumers or I should say advertisers that are maybe gun shy of committing to online advertising during a crisis. And we've had a couple of earlier shows when the shutdown really started to happen about how to hold on to certain aspects of your advertising. Don't just seize everything, because that is probably the worst thing you can do. You got to be maybe more smart, more nimble on how you actually direct your ad dollars. But what would be some recommendations that you have? There's two different options that we have. We either adapt, survive, and potentially thrive, right? Or you can fall behind those who have figured out how to navigate during these uncertain times. So that's the two scenarios that we have in front of us. So what would you give as advice to those who are wanting to adapt?
I would say first and foremost, you have to fight that urge to like that panic in your chest of like, oh my God, we have to stop everything. And sometimes you can have control over that and you can have influence. And sometimes clients will just want to stop. And those clients are worth reaching out to again to say, hey, we have some ideas of some things that we might be able to do now. Can we talk about that? And that may get them back in. But those, you're going to have a certain percentage that are just going to want to just bail and kind of like sit in the corner, wait for this to all be over. Those are not the best prospects to work with. The people who are best to work with now, and the mindset I think that you want to help to facilitate for clients is that this is a time to look for opportunity because CPCs are less expensive because a whole lot of people stopped advertising. So there could be opportunity to advertise in ways now that were previously sort of cost prohibitive, or, you kept running into, budget limitations and that type of thing. You might find that that's not the case right now. So it's worth exploring things that perhaps that you had explored previously. But dismissed because it was too expensive. It might be less expensive now. And I think, thinking in more of the long term, especially with digital, everything is so immediate, and we have become a society where everything sort of has to have this immediate payoff. And I think this is a great time to sort of back off of that just a little bit and start to think about, how do we continue to have a relationship with people who, are already our clients? And then how do we reach out and start to build a relationship with people who could be our clients? And by doing that in a respectful and responsible way, you can do that through lookalike audiences. I think one of the best things that Facebook does, honestly, I know we could do a whole 2 hours talking about Facebook and what's been happening with them. But if you want to leverage what Facebook does best, it's like it does what every marketer says is their dream. you have this list of customers who are wonderful customers, and everyone says, God, I wish I could just clone them, right? We want more of these people.
And they're doing just that.
And you upload that list to Facebook, and they're like, hey, we found you 4 million more people, who are like this. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Let's show them some ads. Now could be a good time to do that. And that traffic is typically, less expensive than if you're just doing straight up prospecting.
Sure. No, it's a beautiful thing, but it also is a very risky thing if you're not actually attributing it to some sort of additional conversion on the Facebook side of things. Not to go down that rabbit hole, but it's always interesting to see how many campaigns that we inherit that have no conversion tracking whatsoever on the ads, just because they kind of hide the cheese in the Facebook business manager's tool set. But I mean. It's good for us because we can line it up and be able to dial in those leads very easily. So some key things you're talking about, possibly experiment on some higher budget items because they're not that expensive anymore. Try different touch points and different types of ad space that you haven't been before. But you do need to stay relevant. And you do need, it's not just a transaction, but you need to stay relevant as a brand. What about running up-to-date ads and different types of inspiring type of ad sets? Is that some place where you'd recommend going, or maybe not so much inspiration, just having more frequent ads and changes? Is that something that you'd be recommending?
I think you can mix that in, but you want to do it in a way, again, that feels human.
Got it.
That feels like, you're actually just trying to have a human moment. I mean, I think it's tricky. You can really be quickly on the wrong side of the line where people could feel like you're trying to take advantage of situations. So you want to be careful with that. And I think the other thing that we're talking a lot about now in the industry is, especially for platforms where you have visuals that go along with your ads,
sure,
you want to be mindful of your visuals, and you don't want to create unnecessary agita for people looking at your ads. In other words, you need to be COVID aware. You don't want to have a photo of a group of people sitting in an office together,
right,
like around a conference table. Because, for a certain percentage of the population, that's going to give them instant agita, because it's like, oh my God, why are they sitting like that? We're so conditioned now to not, we all have our own feelings about, what should be happening, what's appropriate, in a group. Like, how big of a group of people do you have? Are they wearing masks? Are they not wearing masks? Like, these are all things that I think you want to think about in your advertising, and you probably want to test.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, because I was looking at webcams the other day, and there was one webcam, and literally all of the people in the conference room were sitting real close to each other, and they were oohing and awing about this particular webcam. But I'm just kind of going,
right. It looks weird now. It looks like, oh my God, why are you doing that?
They're elbow to elbow. Should that webcam not be also spraying sanitizer in one way, shape, or form around the conference table?
Exactly.
It's just this where we are right now. So you've got to be sensitive to your visuals. You're absolutely right. All right. So we always want to bring a pro tip to the show. So we're going to tee this up to you. What would be a really good pro tip that you could give to our listeners who are in the digital advertising space?
I would say trust in your instincts. And if you're newer in the business, work on honing your instincts, listening to clients and being able to adapt and be selling what they want to buy is really important. So flexibility and the ability to roll with change, especially if you're working in digital advertising where the platforms have whims that can really ruin your day. I think that cultivating those skills is something that will serve you well, whether you work in this industry for 2 years or 20 years.
Very good. Well said. Kind of finishing this up, tell us about PPC Chat.
Yeah, so PPC Chat is a Twitter chat that happens every Tuesday at noon Eastern. I have been managing it with a group of other people for about the last 3 years. It was started by Matt Umbro about 8 or 9 years ago. And it's a great, the chat itself is great. We talk about various topics relating to PPC every week. And then the hashtag is active though, like all the time. So if you have questions, if you're running up against something, if you're wondering like, hey, is Facebook not working for you too? Like any of those kinds of things, is Google Ads broken right now? You can post any of that stuff on the hashtag. And there are always people who are, available and who will answer questions or, kind of weigh in on things like that. So it's a really wonderful community. I know not every industry has that kind of camaraderie that the paid search community has. Yep. And so the PPC chat, the hashtag, and the actual chat itself is a way to interact with other people, especially because a lot of us work by ourselves. So it's nice to have, a community of like-minded people and, resources you can, call upon if you have questions or if you want a second opinion on something.
No, it's a fantastic platform, and a few of our guests are on that chat on a regular basis. Kirk Williams, for example, he's been two times on the show here, and so we certainly laud that. So if you're in the PPC area, if you're in the industry, or if you're wanting to get into the industry, this is a great channel to actually learn from, and very friendly. They don't jump down each other's throat as other chat circles may. SEO. So it would certainly recommend everybody going in there and engaging, because there are a lot of great contributors into that space. So kudos for you managing that fount of information.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
We are working on a mentoring program as well. So that I hope will be rolling out here. We're trying to get the underpinnings of it in place, but we're working on having a mentoring program in place to help, again, more established people in the industry to be able to kind of give back and help other people sort of get a foothold, especially if they're interested in speaking or, doing other things where it can be, it can be kind of hard to catch a break if you don't have somebody who's sort of helping to help you figure out how to do that.
Absolutely. And that's even more important nowadays, is that if we're all in our respective homes and doing the work, we need to have that additional connection to everybody right now.
Definitely.
All right. Well, wrapping up here, Julie, we certainly appreciate your time and good sage advice, and we do thank you for being there in the PPC space for such a long period of time, being able to give us some sage wisdom of PPC, calm down and PPC on, so to speak. We always want to finish up with our guest interviews with just asking a couple quick questions. What really bugs you about your industry right now? And keep it clean. Keep it clean.
I would say the thing that really gets on my nerves right now is when you see people tweeting about, how they're just killing it for, X, Y, or Z client, and they post a couple of screenshots and like, that's it. There's no context. There's nothing that might actually help somebody else.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's just like these braggy posts about, how awesome they are. And they just like give you a couple of screenshots of, random things. And I think like, why?
That's good for you. Keep on. Go along as you were. All right. Well, conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
I'm excited by the possibility. Like I love being in this industry because no 2 days look the same.
Amen to that.
And so I would lose my mind if I had a job where, every day looked the same and I had to do the same thing every single day. So I am always excited by the fact that there's some new challenge that's ahead of me like every day. And it could be something that's like specific to my clients and what's going on. It could be something that's macro, like the pandemic or, economic crash. It could be, something that is, the platforms do. I talked earlier about random acts of Google or, random acts of Facebook. Right. I'm only half joking about that because those happen
yes, they do.
every year. So it keeps me on my toes. I really I love problem solving, and I love helping to, figure out how to do things, in a new way. And everything is always evolving. So, I like hearing what other people are doing. I like seeing if there's something I can do to, capitalize off what they're doing and say, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what would happen if I tried that, in what I'm doing. So I just find the whole process just sort of invigorating and interesting.
Excellent. It's never a dull moment, right?
No.
All right. So final thoughts to our digital audience, digital marketing audience. Last bits of words of wisdom to give to that aspiring PPC.
I would say everything works out in the end, no matter what kind of cycle we're going through. There are always cycles that are happening in business, whether it's, the boom of an economy and a recession, whether it's a pandemic, something that was unforeseen that just, took over everything, or whether it's even things like the pendulum that swings back and forth between in-house and agency. I mean, I've seen that cycle happen probably 4 times fully in the 21 years I've been doing this.
Yep.
Nothing is really permanent in this space. So try not to get too freaked out about anything that's happening in a given moment, and just be steady and, be that voice of reason, be that calming place. Hopefully you can do it for yourself first and foremost, but that's what clients want. Yeah. They really want someone who's going to be steady, who isn't going to freak out, when something happens, and you're going to say, yeah, here's what's going on, and here's what we're thinking about doing about it. And so you can be that place of safety, that place of consistency, where even if everything is just going haywire, they know that in you, they have someone who's going to be like, all right, we're going to figure this out. I feel like that's the best advice that I could give. If that isn't your natural personality, try to work on at least being able to fake it.
If your go-to point is panic, then you probably need to figure out some better way to communicate to your clients.
Maybe you want to not be the face who talks to the clients and you're just like, oh my God, it's terrible. They don't need that.
The Chicken Little PPCer. Okay, so two concepts here: keep calm and PPC on, and this too shall pass. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, we certainly want to promote everybody to check in on the PPC Chat hashtag. That's 12 p.m. Eastern. You can also jump over to the website where you have the PPC chats, as well as the mentoring program. The official, that's www. I don't need to do that anymore, folks. officialppcchat.com. officialppcchat.com. Now, is there a non-official PPC chat?
I don't know. I had to get the domain, so that's what I picked.
Got it. So that's a whole nother. That could be like rival PPC chat gangs roaming the digital annals with like the sharks and the jets.
I'm a jet.
All right. So thank you so much for your time, Julie. It's been a pleasure. And we certainly give you all the kudos for doing what you've done for such a long time, and running a good consulting agency, and doing what's right for your clients, as opposed to just doing what's right now to get that additional whatever you're trying to get out of this crisis. We know you're not one of those, and we certainly do not recommend those type of tactics. You got to hold on and protect the brand right now above all things. Yeah,
definitely. And thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. All right, so be sure to check the trending news that we covered this week with Julie Friedman Beccini in the bonus news podcast episode, and the bonus YouTube upload that will be out in the next few days. If you want to follow Julie, you can follow their Twitter handle at Neptune Moon, as well as Neptune Moon on LinkedIn. So give her a shout and let her know how she did on the show, and make sure that you touch base with her if you have some questions in the PPC space. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Edge of the Web on YouTube. And if you're really feeling up to it today, we certainly would appreciate a like and review over on the iTunes side of things. That's how we gonna flip to the top on the SEO podcast realm. Thanks to our sponsors, Site Strategics and Ahrefs. We certainly recommend you go check out Ahrefs as a great software tool to be able to analyze SEO competition and feed them their lunch, so to speak. Make sure you check out all the must-see videos over at Edge of the Web Radio. Edge of the Web Radio will be talking to John Mueller of Google coming up in this next show, so don't miss that. And from all of us over here at Edge of the Web, be safe, be well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.